Hello, good day viewers. In today's tutorial we are going to see the factorial. So first I am given what is 4 factorial. 4 factorial is the same thing as 3, is the same thing as 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. If you are given a number factorial, so you have to start with the number until you go to the list, until you go to the 1. So therefore, suppose I'm given 2 factorial. So you are going to start from what? From 2 itself, multiply by the number that is what? In the backward of the 2, which is what? 1. That's all, because 1 is the least. So therefore, the 4 factorial shall now be 4 multiplied by 3, which is 12, multiplied by 2, multiplied by 1. So this should now be because 12 times 2, which is 24, times 1, and therefore 24 times 1, it will give you what? 24. What is 2 factorial? 2 factorial is 2 times 2, so this should now be 2. What if I'm given 5 factorial? So I'll start from 5. I'll say 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. 5 times 4, which is 20, times 3 times 2 times 1. 2 multiplied by what? 2 multiplied by 1, which is what? I will say 20 times 3 times 2. 3 multiplied by what? 6. I'll get 20 multiplied by 6. If I said 20 multiplied by 6, what should I going to get? So this is same thing as saying 20 times what? 6. 6 times 0, 6 times 12. So this should now be equals to 120. Again, if you phrase in your calculator as saying what? As saying 5 factorial. 5 factorial, which is also what? 120. So first I'm given a question says 2 factorial plus 3 factorial. This is the same thing as saying 2 times 1 plus what? Plus 3 times 2 times 1. So this will give me 2 plus what? 3 times 2, which is 6 times 1. So this should now be 2 plus 6, and it is equals to what? It is equals to 8. So what if I'm given 3 factorial, 4 factorial? This is multiplication. So I have to say 3 times 2 times 1 multiplied by what? Multiplied by 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. 3 factorial, which is what? 6. Because 3 times 2 it will give me 6. 6 times 1 is to give me what? Again 6. 4 times 2, 12, which is 4 factorial. We find it, which is what? Multiplied by what? 24. So the next thing that, because this is multiplication, so the next thing I have to say just 6 multiplied by what? 6 multiplied by what? 24. So this should now give me what? 144. So what if I'm given this? What if I'm given 7 factorial, 8 factorial divided by what? 10 factorial, and what? 7 factorial. So as you can see, I will get away of this 7 factorial, 7 factorial, because they are the same. So this should now be equals to 8 factorial divided by, so to get away of this 10 up to the least 1, so I can say 10 times what? Times 9 times 8 times 7 times 8 up to 1. But because I have 8 factorial here, so I'll say the factorial, so that 8 will cancel 8. So this should now be 1 multiplied by what? 10 multiplied by 9, which is what? 90. So this should now be over what? 90. So what if you are given 8 factorial over what? Over 10 factorial. The same thing, you are going to say 8 divided by what? 10 times what? 10 times 9 times what? Times 8 factorial. This will cancel this, the same, will get the same answer. So what if you are given n plus 1 factorial divided by n factorial, it is always equals to what? N plus what? 1. So how? The next thing to do is that if I said what is n plus 1 factorial, so the first thing that you are going to tell me, you have to keep what? You have to keep n plus 1 down, but without putting the factorial. After then, you have to say this n plus 1 subtract by 1. So it will now be only n because this will become 0. So you have to say n. And therefore, what is n factorial itself? N factorial, you have to say, should now be n subtract by 1. So therefore, this should now be what? This should now be n minus 1, then put factorial. So the next thing that you are going to tell me is that, if I ask this question, so you have to say, what of n factorial? N factorial, just put the n itself and then find the n factorial. N factorial, I say you are going to subtract by 1, then you have n minus 1. The next thing, if you like, you have to say, if minus 1, you get minus 2. So therefore, n minus 2. So, but I'm going to leave it like this, will now be n factorial. Because this what? N will cancel, n minus 1 factorial will cancel n minus 1 factorial. N will cancel n. So this should now be equals to n plus 1. So this is proof, as I said, this n plus 1 divided by n, it is equals to what? All in factorial, it is equals to n plus 1. So what if I have n minus 1 factorial divided by n factorial? What should I going to get? So I have to say this should now be equals to, what should I get? n minus 1, I'm going to leave it the way it is, and then I'm going to find n minus 1 factorial, which is I will subtract with 1. N minus 1, then I have to subtract 1 again. This and this will give me what? Minus 2. So this should now be n minus what? Minus 2 what? Factorial. And the next thing to do is that I have to say n, I have what? N minus what? N minus, okay, I have n. I have to keep the n down, and then I have to say, if I have only n, I will subtract by 1. So this should now be n minus what? Minus 1 factorial. But I have to keep going again. So I will say n minus 2 factorial. The reason that I will go again to get away of this, so this will go with what? With this. Sure. The next thing to do is that this will go with this. I'm left with 1 over what? 1 over n. So at the end I will have fraction. So first I have what? Let's say when n it is 2. So I'll have 2 minus 1 what? Factorial divided by 2 factorial. It will give me what? I'll have what? 1 factorial over what? 2 factorial. So this should now be equals to 1 over 2. As you can see, it turns back. I have 1, and therefore I must to have my n. So what if I am given n plus 1 factorial divided by n factorial? So at this point, what should I going to get? N factorial. As you can see, when it comes to addition, I have to first keep down n plus 1 as it is. Yes. Then I'm going to multiply. If I say n plus 1 subtract by 1, this should now be only n. So therefore, I will end with n itself. If I like, I will say, so this n subtract by 1, I should now get n minus 1 factorial. So I have to divide by what? N factorial. I have to keep n as it is. So the next thing is that I have to say, what is the n factorial? I have to subtract by 1. Yes, so I have to keep down n factorial. So this should now be what? This will cancel this, and this will cancel this. The next thing I'll end with what? N plus 1. So as you can see, we did for this. We already did it. Yes. I just repeat the question. But there is one thing that I need you to know. If you are given n plus 1 factorial, n plus 1 factorial is the same thing as saying you have to just subtract by 1. It will now be n plus 1 subtract by 1. This should now be equals to n. But before then, you have to first keep the n plus 1 as it is. After then, you have to fold what? You have to say, so n plus 1 minus 1 should now be equals to n. So therefore n plus 1 factorial is the same thing as what? As n. So when n minus 1 factorial, it will be what? It will be what? So you have to subtract by 1. So this should now be equals to n minus 2 factorial. So I think this is all I have for you for factorial. Don't forget to subscribe this YouTube channel. I hope by now factorial it is more understandable to you. Thanks you for watching.